Other people are interested in figuring out when the peak will occur. This graph was produced by some folks at the Association for the Study of Peak Oil, which is an international organization that holds conferences and is dedicated to finding out when the peak will occur. So vertical axis is billion barrels a year, just like the previous graph. So there's 25 billion barrels a year, starting out in 1930. Different colors for different regions of the world. The green is the United States, and you can see, just as for the first graph, U.S. oil production peaked about 1970. This is European oil production that got its start, in the 70s with the discovery of the North Sea oil, Middle Eastern oil, and then up here are some interesting types of oil. The black is heavy oil, like the tar sands in Alberta and the heavy oil in Venezuela. Polar oil is there, and there are other contributions. What these folks have done is to assess as carefully as they can the potential for additional oil from all the oil-producing countries in the world, and they come up with a peak right about sometime in this decade. So it appears from this study that world oil production is about to peak. And when you look at some other evidence, which I've summarized here, this evidence further makes the case for a peak in world oil production. If you look at discoveries peaked in the 60s. There's been oil discovered since then, but not nearly in the quantities that had been discovered in originally or earlier. Production has exceeded discovery every year since 1983. For every barrel we find today, we use 6 barrels, so we're using it a lot faster than we can discover it now. 2/3 of oil-producing countries have peaked in their production, and the oil industry analysts say there's just no spare production capacity in the world anymore. There used to be some, especially in Saudi Arabia, but the thinking is that there just isn't. So if there would be a crisis and oil from some country were taken off the world market, then there'd be a rapid increase there'd be an oil shock and a rapid increase in price. Well, this is important for some obvious reasons, but the most important reason is that our economy really runs on oil. When you think about the economy and the fact that it requires goods to be shipped to factories for manufacture of manufactured goods, food to be shipped across the country and from country to country, the economy really does run on oil. And world oil demand is increasing. So, again, when peak oil occurs, increasing demand will exceed supply. Any economist or economic student will tell you that means prices will rise, interruptions may develop, and we've seen this already in the 1970s. Now, here's some data to indicate the effect of increases in oil prices on the economy. This graph is taken from a document called the Hirsch Report, which is available online, and it was a study that was commissioned by the government to look at how the effects of peak oil could be mitigated. So this graph shows the effects. The data points are oil price per barrel in $2003. And the thing to notice is that whenever there's a sharp jump in the price, there's also an economic downturn, a recession. So there's one time of the Arab oil embargo, 75. Then another sharp price increase around 1980 and recessionary period. Milder price increase here. That was about the time of the Gulf War and recessionary period. Price rise here right around 9/11 and a recessionary period. So if there is a price rise, then the expectation is that would kick the economy into a recession. Now, how do we stand in the United States? Well, the United States is a huge importer of oil. 2/3 of our oil is imported. The United States is still a major oil-producing country, but we use so much that we have to import it. This graphic is taken from the British Petroleum Statistical Review of World Energy. That's a document they put out every year, and it shows proved oil reserves. And the significant thing is that most of the reserves remaining in the world are in the Middle East. That's documented. Now, this also from the British Petroleum Statistical Review of World Energy. This is major trade movements. So it shows the flow of oil from the oil-producing countries to the oil-importing countries. When you look over here at the United States, you notice that all the arrows are pointing toward the States, and that signifies that we're importing oil from many countries. Now, the units are millions of tons of oil, so it's not barrels. That's just the way they made the graph. But let's see. This is 113 million tons. You multiply that by 7 to get the number of barrels. So from Canada in 2006, we imported about 800 million barrels of oil. And other major suppliers of oil to the United States were the Middle East, about the same as Canada, Venezuela, a little bit more, and Africa, Nigeria, and also probably Angola as well. Major suppliers, foreign suppliers of oil to the United States. That's where we're getting 2/3 of our oil. So, I want to show you some price data. But first, I like this title from National Geographic in June of 2004 called "The End of Cheap Oil." I think the editors were onto something back then. Because if you make this graph, now this is my graph, but the data is all available online from the Department of Energy, from the Energy Information Administration. And what it shows is two things. The average price of a gallon of gasoline in the United States in cents per gallon, so that's about where it is right now, a little bit higher than $3 a gallon. And gasoline price is blue, and then I also plot the price of a barrel of oil, that's on the NYMEX Futures Exchange, in red. And there are a number of interesting features about this graph, but one is that We tend to forget the way things were in the past. We think about the present. Well, it reminded me when I made up this graph that all the way through the 90s, the price of a gallon of gasoline was hovering around $1 a gallon, and the price of a barrel of oil was hovering around $20 per barrel. And it's only been recently when the price of oil and gasoline have started to go up.